when you take on a new role and a new job, the most important things are your guys that are currently here. As much as, we want to make sure we bring in the next top talent, it starts with home. So for me, it's just really getting to know the guys personally, working guys out and individually, which we've been doing, but also a combination of just playing catch up with the guys that we're recruiting. When I got here, we had a calendar of just 2, 3 guys coming in every single day. And I knew some of those guys, but not all of them. So really just getting acclimated with, I would say 70% our guys, but also getting on board and playing catch up with the guys that we're recruiting.
Coach, how much communication have you had with EJ and Luann since you've been on the staff?
I've had a little bit. I've been through that process in a different way, so I kind of understand what they're going through. When I originally got the job, I shot them a text, just letting them know that, hey, I'm going to be here. If you need anything from me, just reach out. But also giving those guys their space, because this is a very important part of their journey, part of their life, and just no pressure from our coaching staff, and definitely not from myself. But I definitely spoke to those guys briefly when I first got the job.
Now, what was your level of familiarity with the Ohio State program and Chris Holtmann's career in general before joining the sector?
I mean, from a coaching standpoint, Coach Holtmann has had history of success, obviously, when he was at Butler. I just came from the Big East, and so if you know the Big East, you know that Butler's been very, very successful over the last decade or so. As far as the program is concerned, I mean, it's not a no-brainer. The Ohio State brand is such a big brand. And for me, just being an East Coast kid, whether it's, from a player's mentality or a coaching mentality, it's definitely a brand and a place that I was excited when I initially got the phone call. Maybe a little too overexcited, because these things, these jobs are very hard to get. And when you kind of plant a seed, or the seed is being planted as you go through the process, you're kind of going back and forth. Hey, am I going to get the job? Do I have a chance? Who am I up against? But just the whole excitement and through the process for me, I was excited to have the opportunity. And obviously, once I got the job, it was just one of those things where I knew that the brand is something that I've always wanted to be a part of. Obviously, I just left Seton Hall, where there was a ton of success in the 3 years that I was there. Had some really, really good teams, had one of the best players in the country. But when you get another opportunity to just kind of take that, step up, is something that excites you. And, I'm just glad to be here.
Mentioned getting to know guys last month. What has that process been like? And what are you kind of making of the guys that you have been able to work out with?
I mean, it's been good. I don't believe in trying to force relationships. I think that when you get to somewhere that's new for you, it's got to be organic. You have to let it kind of run its course. And obviously, we're in the basketball world. And so the one thing that you have to do, the one thing that I've tried to do, is just kind of try to get to know those guys on the court. I'm currently working with a couple of guys that I'm, obviously getting a little closer to, but over time, I think it's important to just let that thing kind of organically roll. And we're here all summer. Those guys are here, and, that's just something that's kind of coming along.
And similarly with the rest of the staff, obviously, Coach Holtmann and Ryan Keaton have been together for a long time.
Yeah.
Jerry Johnson, who just left, have been with them. Jake Diegler is obviously part of the Ohio State family. Mm-hmm. Just how is that meshing of coaching staffs kind of worked for you?
I mean, I'm the new guy, so it's day to day. One of the things that I was comfortable about with taking this job was just because, even though I didn't directly know those guys, basketball is a small business, and I indirectly knew them through just so many different people in the coaching world, in the coaching business. So I was comfortable with coming on board. And, Pete's been with Coach for a long time. He knows the in and outs of, coaches, his vision and his ability to coach and get things done. And, Jake's done the same in just a short period of time. And so getting on board with guys like that, it's been fun. They've made things pretty easy for me transition wise. And, it's not all serious, and it's not all basketball, some jokes in there too. So I've appreciated just working with those guys in just a short amount of time.
And then this program obviously had a lot of success last year. It didn't end the way they wanted to, but there's some expectations, I think, around this program to look at preseason rankings and even talking to these guys, those expectations. So how do you kind of handle coming into this program for the first time, and balancing those expectations with we still have work to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to always keep 2 feet on the ground. Once we get past all the hoopla, the most important thing is what goes on between those lines every single day. And that's just something that, obviously I'm glad to be a part of. That's something that I've experienced myself. So from an expectation level, I was comfortable in taking this job because if you look at the program and the short amount of time that Coach Holtmann's been here, he's trending up. And when you look at this team, obviously that, didn't end the way that they wanted it to end last year. That's what the NCAA tournament gives you. I was a part of it on the other end. But having guys like EJ hopefully coming back and some of the guys that are going to have now the opportunity to step up, I think, it's trending up and we got a chance to be really good. So I'm excited about that.
What part of the game do you hope to implement to kind of do over that hump in the season, in the early last year?
I think that, it's just so many different things. One of the qualities as a staff that I admire is just the youth. We're not that old of a staff. We can still kind of get out there on the floor, and there's nothing better in teaching than just getting out there on the floor. I know Coach Diebler is very good at that. So, I'm not that old as well, and I like to get out on the court and just building that trust factor with guys that, letting them know that, hey, listen, no matter the situation or the moment in the game, I've kind of been through it. And so far, it's been really good to just have guys that are really coachable. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to listen in order to be in a situation in the game when there's 20,000 people out there. Your listening factor is very, very important. You can't go out there and make an adjustment if you're not listening. And so for me, it's just been good because I've had guys that have been pretty receptive and just building that trust factor with those guys on the floor. I think that's the biggest thing.
You mentioned you knew Chris from Butler and the Big East. I mean, what really sparked your relationship during the interview process? Was it philosophical about how you guys approach the game, interactions with players? Like what do you think went well
during the interview process? I think for one, Coach, obviously he does his research as he should. But I was pretty impressed with the fact that he knew so much about me personally without me having to tell him. He did his homework and, in a detailed fashion. But he just made my conversations with him, maybe the initial one, I was a little nervous because, again, I didn't know him directly. We know a bunch of different people. But, going into that second conversation, I was actually on vacation with my family. And I remember him calling and, he texted originally. It was a soft text. And then we spoke, started the conversation. But then a couple of days went by and I was like, yeah, I definitely don't have this chance. But then when he called back, we spoke for probably almost an hour while I was on vacation with the family. And so it was a relaxed conversation. I didn't feel any pressure. It felt organic, didn't feel forced at all. I had been in some, I had some other opportunities where it's like I felt like I was being interviewed from the first conversation to the second conversation. So this was a little bit different. And it just kind of got me a little bit more excited to be able to close and get the job. But, he's just a real easy person to talk to. He knows his stuff. He makes you feel comfortable. And so when he called and offered me the job, it was a no-brainer, yes.
Was there something that you think that you did well during the interview process, though? What do you bring to the table?
In my opinion, I just think I bring, again, something different from the outside. And I think that's what he was looking for. As, uncomfortable as he might have been with hiring someone that he doesn't know, he did his due diligence and just the type of person that I am, the type of worker that I am. And so I just think that, he did his research, but from my standpoint, I think I bring something different outside of, his coaching tree, outside of, obviously Diebler's, from Ohio and the Midwest, and having an opportunity to get a guy like myself who's from the rich DMV. I'm a little biased, so I have to say rich DMV. It's just it's a positive thing to be able to get a guy like myself that knows that region that's maybe been untapped a little bit.
Along those lines, so you have obviously extensive ties out that way. How much do you expect your recruiting to be focused in that region as opposed to being recruiting locally? I assume you probably do both. How do you sort of split that balance?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think that Ohio State's a national program. So you can't just limit yourself to, right down the road. And from a personal level, I'm not just going to limit myself to what I know. Obviously, organically, DC, I know it in the back of my head, but I got to get on the ground in Columbus, in Ohio, in regions that are, you know, demographically that are 2-3 hours away. I think it starts with the home first. And I'm not going to be the assistant coach that just says, hey, well, these other two guys know the lay of the land a little bit better than me. So I'm going to sit back. I'm going to try to learn. I'm going to try to build relationships with those guys. The one thing that, you know, I've been very fortunate of through my journey of hooping and coaching is, you know, just having the ability to just pretty much know everyone. And so when I got the job, it's ironic that, you know, a bunch of local coaches who I hadn't talked to in a while just kind of texted me, congratulations. But, you know, these were phone numbers that were already saved in my phone. So I had somewhat of a relationship with them. So I think it's going to be a combination of, you know, what I know in the back of my head, but what I need to learn locally and regionally and, you know, demographically as well, and building those relationships.
When you talk about local coaches, you mean local to here or local to back in DC or?
No, just in general, just guys in general that, you know, I haven't talked to, you know, in a year or two, but at some point along the line in my coaching career, whether it was a kid that I was recruiting, whether it was at Louisiana Tech, when I first got into coaching, Coach Eric Conkle told me, he gave me a big book this thick, said, just call every coach that you need to call. And, you know, I probably called 25% of it, but 25% is still pretty much a lot of coaches. And when you're recruiting at that level, you kind of gotta find a diamond in the rough. And sometimes you establish relationships that you normally wouldn't establish. And that's been pretty good for me as well. So when I originally got that job, there were a few coaches that did reach out that locally, I was like, okay, so I do have a relationship at least to start from somewhere regionally.
And when you talk about getting to work with guys individually, getting to know them on the court a little bit, who have you been able to work with? I know all the assistant coaches kind of handle different responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Who have you maybe started to build some non-court relationships?
So I've been in the gym pretty consistently with Justin, with Jimmy, and with Eugene. Those are my three guys that we're actually just finished a workout with Eugene just now. So getting to know those guys, obviously high level shooter, Jimmy Soto's, he just actually broke a record the other day that everybody was questioning whether or not it was true, but I had 3 witnesses in the gym. So Jimmy's a high level shooter, obviously Justin is as well. So really just getting a chance to know those guys and, you know, Eugene as well.
Can you tell us what kind of record it was?
Yeah, it was the Celtic Drill. Not sure if you guys are familiar with the Celtic Drill.
Can you break it down?
So the Celtic Drill, you get a minute to make as many shots as you can. And Jimmy went around and back in a minute and 3 seconds. So that's currently the record here at Ohio State. So.
What should I ask you? I asked a friend of mine who knows you, and he said, ask him about house hunting.
About what?
Hunting for your new house.
Oh, man.
Family transition and all that. They said you haven't had much time with all the appointments you guys have had recruiting-wise, any of that.
Yeah, it's been, whoever your friend is, he's not lying, because that's been the situation. It's been nonstop. And so the market and everything else that's going on right now, it's made it tough to just get a few minutes to just be able to attack things personally, like finding a place to live. But we're getting a little closer to that towards the end of the month where I'll have a little bit more time as we roll into July. July is not going to be any easier, but there are a few days in there where I'm going to trying to learn the lay of the land. I have a 14-year-old that's pretty good. And so I want to find a balance of, you know, putting them in a good spot, but also I'm not a big driver. And I've been fortunate at my first 2 stops where I was 5 minutes away from campus, and Columbus is a lot bigger than that. So trying to find that balance of, you know, the right spot for my son, my kids, and then also not being stuck in traffic. I just came from, you know, outside of New York City traffic. So that wasn't fun at all. So I bought something close to the house.
When did you first start coaching?
So I started coaching college basketball.
Yes.
Okay. I started coaching in 2015. I retired and shut it down, you know, top of 2014. From playing professionally. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but, you know, I was fortunate enough where one of my guys was coaching, you know, an AAU team. He said, just come in the gym and just, you know, help me out, and just kind of took off with it. And shortly after, a year later, one of my former coaches who was at the University of Miami got the job at Louisiana Tech, and he called me up, and, you know, that was my first opportunity, May of 2015.
You mentioned Coach Holtmann called you or texted you on your application. Did you have his number? And what's that like when you're with the family and you gotta hey, I gotta go take this. This could be big. What's that kind of conversation like?
Well, the first time he called me, I did not have his number saved. It was a soft text. And obviously, after that text, I saved his number. But the second call while I was on vacation, my family, it's a basketball family. I've got, my oldest son is 14. My middle son is 7, almost 8. And so they're both basketball heads and basketball junkies. So I think they were probably more excited than I was leading into it. And, they're kids. They don't know how the business goes. So if they hear that, Pops is involved with Ohio State, they think that he already got the job. So when I got the call, it wasn't, no pressure from the wife or the kids to just kind of step off and take the call.
When you've had as many recruits you guys have had in this, I know you can talk about this specifically, but what sort of things have you been able to try to tell them is name, image, and likeness? I mean, that stuff's coming up here. How are you guys trying to coach recruits through that as we're all figuring out that's
Yeah, that's the big question, right? What exactly is the name, image, and likeness? And I think the one thing that the staff has done a good job of is, Ohio State is a brand. And at the end of the day, you have to have your personal brand. But when you can tie your personal brand into a brand like Ohio State, it's on the up and up. Again, I don't think anyone really knows what this thing is and how it's going to be a year from now. I think it's going to be a bunch of, turbulence and trying to figure this thing out. But when you have a place like Ohio State, who's been successful on, just pretty much, all your sports, basketball, football, having that type of, student body, all those things do matter when you're trying to generate income with your personal brand. And that type of visibility is important because you look at some of these other programs that are high level programs, they're also competing with, major sports, whether it's pro football, pro basketball, or whatever it is. Columbus does not have that. We are the pro sports in Columbus. And I think that's important for an individual that's trying to kind of, weather the storm and understand this NIL thing.
also looking forward a little bit? I know you're pretty focused on the here now, but you could see Seton Hall around Thanksgiving when you guys go to Fort Myers.
Yeah, I've heard.
Has that factored into your thinking at all, or has that crossed your mind?
That's so far down the line. It's definitely something that's been brought up. That's my family. So at the end of the day, if we end up going to war, it is what it is. But trying to just take it one day at a time.
Aside from the whole recruiting business, Monday through Thursday, last week you guys also got the opportunity to sort of go out and see guys live after it's been a dead period. How crazy you got been getting those opportunities guys to see?
Yeah. It was great just to be able to get out on the road. We haven't had a chance for a year and a half. More importantly, I was impressed with a lot of the kids just because it's so we talk about us not being able to get out on the road. It's so unfair to them because when you think about it, when you're watching a 17 and U game, you think about it, they didn't play last year. And then this previous year, most of those guys were playing 15U and we're not watching 15U. So it was really their first chance to play in that atmosphere and that type of pressure. And I was impressed with a lot of those kids just, having that, sort of, pressure to be able to play when they haven't really played at that level. So it's been great on both sides, just getting a chance to get out. And, I'll say the same for this weekend as we kind of move around.
What was the reaction like by other people, whether it's coaches you know or people that know of you when you walk out the block O and start the ground?
Yeah, it's in my 6 years of coaching, I've always been that guy. I know a lot of people, but I don't necessarily want to say hi to a bunch of different people in the gym. So naturally, that's kind of who I am. So I kind of had to put that aside and just take it for what it was, because it was definitely a double load of, hey, what's up, man? Congrats. Especially because I did go to DC. So it's a little bit different, being at DeMatha and, having that jersey on. I'm sorry, I said jersey. I'm still in player mode, having that polo on. It's definitely something to be proud of. And, I'm excited and a lot of people are excited as well.
When it comes to DC, you mentioned earlier that you just felt like you sort of bought something different.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the actual on-court coaching stuff, coaching stuff, what do you think you can bring to this stuff from a recruiting angle?
I think it's a couple of different things. I've been able to just kind of build really, really, and I use this word a lot because I really believe it, just organic relationships. At the end of the day, a lot of the people that I have relationships with around my age, So they kind of know my history. We have kids that are the same age. And when you have that ability to just be able to build a real relationship with people, people trust you with their kids at the end of the day. I say it all the time. You know, I want to do the same thing to your son that you would do to my son. And I just think that that goes a long, long way, especially when you start from the bottom and just kind of rise to the top. You know, you're not at Louisiana Tech, you're not getting the top 100 kid, you're not getting the top 150 kid, but you're getting really, really talented players from all sorts of different places. And when you're able to build those type of relationships and be successful with those kids, those same coaches, high school coaches, AAU coaches, they have players for you in the top 50 and the top 100 as well. And they trust you because you've been able to do it with kids that, you know, obviously you wouldn't recruit at Ohio State, but they know who you are.
I'll end one last quick question there. You mentioned DMV, you were part of the team takeover down at DC with BYBL. You mentioned the top 50, top 100 kids. A lot of those guys play on that circuit, on the top circuit. And when I talked to you before you sort of got announced on the job, they mentioned you're acting as an evaluator of talent. How does it feel now that you sort of took another step up in the job? You can look at these different guys. What are you hoping to find when it comes to bringing guys here on this?
I mean, to start with, I think that this is such a unique and such a top tier program. There's so many different things that you have to evaluate. And you're not necessarily going to have, you know, if you have a checklist of 7 things, you're not necessarily going to check off all those things. But I think the most important thing is just making sure you're getting the right type of guys that are going to lead your program on the court and off the court. From a physical standpoint, from a talent standpoint, the Big Ten is the best league in college basketball. So from a skill set standpoint, you obviously have to be able to do a few things really, really, really well to be even, you know, on a recruiting radar. And so it's just a different combination of different things. Knowing the game, I always put myself in the position of when I'm on the floor and I'm watching a kid, you know, whether it's a big or whether it's another guard, can I put myself in the position? Can I play with him? Because that's just the mindset that you have to have as a coach. Obviously, you're not on the floor with those guys, but you're coaching those guys. So I think that's a big part of just the evaluation process. Can I see myself on the floor and going to war with those guys?
You mentioned during the hiring process that you were kind of like, do I have it? Do I not have it? And you said you've been coaching for 6 years, and that caught my attention. Does this seem quick to you to get to a place like Ohio State with just 6 years? And I don't mean that in any disrespect, but you know, a lot of guys put in a lot of time to go make it to someplace like this.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, you know, everybody's path and everybody's journey is different. I think for one, I'm blessed to have the opportunity. That's the first and most important thing. I'm blessed. But I don't compare myself to, you know, anyone else that's been in coaching, because again, everybody's journey is completely different. You have guys that have been coaching for, you know, 20, 30 years and don't get to the high major level. And you have guys that have been coaching 2-3 years and they get to the high major level. It doesn't bother me. If you look at my track record, I've always been a chip on the shoulder type of guy. And I apply that to, you know, how I live life and obviously, you know, how I coach. So I think the most important thing is just understanding that this is an opportunity. It's a blessing. And that's just really just kind of the way I look at it.
You mentioned how competitive it is in the Big Ten basketball. So everybody's going to be talented. What would you say was in the play?
But
Working hard in the gym?
I can't really hear you.
So you mentioned how hard it is to be at the Big Ten. So that means like a lot of teams are going to be talented. So it's going to be important to have a strong work ethic. How would you say the team work ethic?
I think it's been. I mean, again, it's early. We're not coaching, you know, in games right now, but just the couple practices and couple team sessions that we've had, just the unison and just kind of everybody just being on the same page. It's made my job a little bit easier, just because guys are pretty much self-motivated. You know, I'm not a big rah-rah guy, but at the same time, if that's what's needed, I can be that guy. But I haven't had to do that just yet. Obviously, I'm getting warmed up and getting a chance to know everybody. But I would say just the unison of guys kind of pulling each other up, motivating each other. It's almost like having 14 coaches on the floor, because you see guys just kind of cheering each other up in a positive way. So I think when you have that type of a culture, you got a chance.
We'll finish up one more question here, and then we'll finish up with one on Twitter or Zoom.
Just out of curiosity, we were talking about motivation and stuff. We've talked to Chris a couple times since the end of the season.
You've got what now?
We talked to Coach Holtmann.
Okay, yep.
And I mean, the Oral Roberts game, I mean, that's motivation. I'm just curious to see from it, like, how much you talked about it. Is it something that is very present inside the locker room?
I mean, you know, it's one of those things because it's like it's the NCAA tournament, right? And things happen. You try to put stuff in the past, but as competitors, you keep it in the back of your brain as well. It's those type of moments and those type of memories that you kind of take onto the court when you go to work every single day, because when you have that opportunity again, you don't want to make the same mistake. Like I said, I've been on the other end of that. You know, as a player and as a coach, you know, at Seton Hall, we were an 8 seed, but we had a really good team with Miles Powell his junior year. And we went into that tournament kind of the favorite against Wofford, and we laid an egg. And the one thing that we did, obviously, unfortunately, because of COVID, we ended up coming back and being we were going to be a 2 seed that following year. And I think the one thing that the team did a really good job, not us as coaches, but players, they did a really good job of bringing that up internally all the time. Like, hey, listen, if we win this game doesn't matter, because we got to be prepared for the NCAA tournament, because we remember what happened. And I would imagine that that's the same approach that these guys are going to have, just knowing moving forward that no matter how good we're playing, no matter how, you know, what position that we're in, we got to make sure that when we have this next opportunity, we make the most of it, because it's winning is hard. Winning consistently and for 4 or 5 games in the NCAA tournament is very hard. It's not easy. But if you have the mindset, the right mindset, you have a chance.
All right, and we'll finish up with our last ones on Zoom from Colin Hassel. Go ahead, Colin.
Hey, Tony, I was just wondering, do you have any, positional focuses or specific game plan focuses or duties that you know about right now, or are those going to come down the line?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're gonna discuss later on with the staff. You know, right now it's just been busy. Again, it's been nonstop with 2 or 3 guys coming in and out. But that's something that we're going to get to a little bit later on down the line as a staff.
And I know you mentioned, you're a little bit different in that you're coming from the outside without previous connections to Ohio State or Chris Holtmann or anybody else in the program. What do you think can be beneficial about that?
Just a different voice. Sometimes, I'm a big fan of listening. I don't think you can develop in life if you don't listen. And the one thing that I've been impressed with, with Coach Holtmann is, obviously he's the head coach. And when it's all said and done, it's going to be his call. But when you sit there in a staff meeting where so many different voices are helping him to make a decision, it helps you. It gives you the confidence to make sure that you give your opinion. And so I would just say, just from the outside coming from a different league, coming from a different space, just giving it just a different voice. Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, is just something a little bit different than what he's been used to with, obviously Coach Pete, and then now with Coach Diebler being here for a couple of years. Just a different voice.